Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Richer Soul. Today's guest is Dustin Heiner, who epitomizes what it means to live a richer soul life. Let's find out how he lives life on his terms and how you can too. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life? To wake up energized, excited about the day? To have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want? To be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and bring balance to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com. While you're there, you can sign up for a monthly email where I share the best articles I read this month, let you know about upcoming episodes, and share a little wisdom. You can also listen to coaching calls under the Coaching Calls tab. I also share the most interesting articles I read every week on Facebook at facebook.com/Richer Soul. And there's also a Facebook group where you can ask questions and interact with other listeners. It's episode 99, which means next week is 100. And we have some awesome giveaways for that episode. Stay tuned. Everyone needs a house. And that's one of the reasons that real estate is a great business model. It's also one of the few businesses where people will lend you almost all of the money you need at very reasonable rates for a very long term. However, it's not for everyone, and you need to know what your set of skills are and how they apply and how you're going to run a real estate business with intention and purpose. Because if you don't do it correctly, you can lose all your money and go bankrupt, which happened to a lot of people like Dave Ramsey and Donald Trump. One of the bigger parts of running a business or creating an abundant life is relationships. And we're going to talk about that a little bit in our episode today. I have a team of people who help me, and it continues to grow. My relationships and the fact that I keep networking and connecting with others allows me to have more success than if I tried to do it all myself. Relationships are the key to life, and if you're not being intentional and always seeking out others to connect with, and then secondly, growing those relationships further, then you're probably going to struggle. I receive many of the guests we have on the show because I built relationships. They also refer me to other people, which allows me to go on other shows. I also get a lot of help behind the scenes from people who've dealt with some of the similar issues that I'm dealing with in building this business or in my real estate business. My network helps me in every part of life. Have you intentionally built a network? Who do you want in your network? What are you doing to offer them value? One of my biggest networks is my mastermind group, where I can ask for recommendations and get help from other people who are also living amazing lives. I also have a strong one on the real estate side. There's another set of relationships on the financial side for this podcast and the coaching practice. They've all been built over time with intention. Speaking of building relationships, I met Dustin at FinCon, and when I told him what we talk about on the podcast, living life on purpose and bringing balance to health, money, relationships, time, and spirituality, and creating the right mindsets, he mentioned that's the life he leads. It's rare for me to get that kind of response. How many people do you know who can say that they are living that kind of life? And that's why I wanted to have Dustin on the show. Dustin Heiner is from Master Passive Income. where he reveals his real estate investing business and rental property strategies that he used to quit his job at the age of 37. With passive income and monthly cash flow, Dustin is now successfully unemployed and is financially independent, having enough money, time, and control to do what he wants. He helps people discover how they can create their own real estate investing business from scratch so you can live the dream life you want and do what you love. Travel the world, spend time with your families and friends, devote more time to your hobbies, or anything else. You'll have the freedom and the money to do whatever you want. Dustin confesses he is not a millionaire. He supports his family, travels all over the world, and does whatever he wants with the income his real estate business provides. The systems Dustin has created allow him to travel the world, 6 weeks vacation in Japan, 6 weeks vacation throughout all of Europe, and week-long fishing trips in Alaska, and road trips all over the United States, and doing whatever he wants and only works 1 hour a month. He claims you can quit your job, retire early, and live the dream life with passive income from rental property investing. Let's find out how he does it. Welcome to Richer Soul, Dustin. It's great to have you join us today.
Thank you very much, Rocky. I really appreciate being here. I'm excited to be on your podcast. I love everything that you're talking about and how you're helping people. It's a great podcast to listen to.
Thank you. And I think we're going to have an amazing conversation today. So we always start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
I grew up with the understanding that money was a way to help people feel better. My mom and dad gave gifts, and they were really great about giving gifts. And it didn't really matter how much it cost. I mean, it kind of did, but my parents definitely spent more money than I think they should have. And I was not necessarily taught to save money. I was not really taught how to spend money. I got money when I had a paper route where I was delivering paper. So I had money come in. They never told me, hey, you should do this with your money. You should do that with your money or anything like that. So I was literally never taught anything about money, especially in school. I have a little different perspective than maybe a few people with school teaches you how to be an employee. Not necessarily saying that's a bad thing, but that is just something that I took into account. And I was never taught how to handle finances. I was taught how to put widgets together or make sure I'm given a task and I finish the task. That's what I was taught, but I wasn't taught financial literacy or even how to spend or even save money. So all that was completely foreign. I did know that my parents encouraged me when I got my first credit card. They said, your goal is to always pay it off every single month so that you don't rack up interest, because interest charges you way more money than you eventually borrow. And so that was the only little bit of help financially from the very beginning, was don't rack up debt on credit cards. That was it.
Well, it sounds like they gave you at least somewhat of a foundation. You said something interesting, though, which is money is a way to help people feel better. And that's not something that most people say, nor is it something that they do, in the sense it sounds like your parents were very giving with their money to other people.
They absolutely were. Yeah, very, very giving. And I was blessed to receive that. I think it's inherent in me, but then at the same time, seeing them and how giving they were was a huge blessing and benefit to me, because I absolutely love giving. Now, they would take it just a little bit more to the extreme where they knew each other's love language. When my mom received a gift, she felt like $1 million. Like that was how she felt like she was loved. And she would also give gifts, and that's how she would feel like she was being loving. And so whenever I saw my parents fight, my dad would bring home not like the most expensive gifts, but he'd bring home a gift for her. And so not saying that that's good or bad at all in any way. I'm just saying that's what I witnessed and that's what I saw. And that was when I said to a fault, because that could eventually, towards later in their life, when my mom got cancer, my dad had fibromyalgia and Crohn's colitis and things, that they were not producing money, but they were still spending like they had money. And that was detrimental. So they didn't really do anything to stop the outflow of money, and realized and kept going in that, hey, I'm going to make my wife feel better. She has cancer right now. I'm not saying that this was a wrong thing to do, but he would buy her a present and to make her feel better. And she felt great, but then the debt just kept on going.
And that's a shame. And I think that's one thing that happens to people is when they have an income drop earlier in life versus a planned retirement, not everyone makes the appropriate change to their spending levels. to kind of go along with their income levels. I think in
Yeah.
retirement, it's a little bit different because you plan for it, but who knows? Maybe even going into retirement, people don't adjust their spending as well. And I know we share the experiences of being a paper boy, and I think that was kind of a rite of passage of how to start making a buck when you were a young kid. Today, I guess they can get on the internet and do something different, but it's definitely a way to learn skills. And I find that most successful people, when they were young, were paper boys, at least for my generation.
That makes sense. And what's sad now is obviously newspapers are going away. Little by little, they're going away. But then also older people are delivering papers. I rarely ever see a paper boy anymore. Usually it's a grown man throwing it out of a vehicle, which, like I said, it's not good or bad. It's just the way it is. And so I want my kids to be able to have a job like that. But I look around in my neighborhood, or at least my street, I don't see anybody really getting a paper. When I drive by, I never see any paper. But I thoroughly enjoyed making money and being my own boss. At 12 or 13 years old, having a paper route. I loved it.
So did I. I used to make a ton of money. I didn't save that money early on. I learned that later, but that's okay. I had fun, and I always had a pocket full of cash to enjoy it as I wanted. You said something else interesting, which is that school teaches you to be an employee, not an entrepreneur, or not to really think for yourself, does it?
It doesn't. It really, really doesn't. And I don't know of a better way personally, other than mentoring or really doing some sort of trade school or something like that. But if you think about elementary school, the way you're taught from the beginning is the teacher gives you a problem or a scenario or a question, and then you're taught how to answer it the way they want you to answer it. And then they quiz you on the way that they taught you how to answer it to make sure you get the same answer the right way or the way that they've taught you. And so for me, from elementary school all the way through college, it was all about being taught what the problem is and then what is the right way to get the answer or to fix or do whatever, and then testing you that you actually learned what they just taught you. And so I did not learn to be an entrepreneur in high school or mostly in college. I actually went and got my business degree at Fresno State University in California. And so that is where I really started looking at being an entrepreneur as an emphasis in entrepreneurship, and thinking critically, thinking for myself and not just being an employee and having more rest on your shoulders as opposed to just going through life having a job. But yeah, it's really all about being taught one thing and then being quizzed on it and tested to make sure you learned exactly how they taught you how to do it. And so same thing with an employee. If you go to a factory job, they tell you, put this part here and make this part do this and then do this. And this is the end result. Like you have an end result to put out. You got to have X number of widgets that pop out every single time. And you do it exactly the way we tell you. And that's how I was taught. But now I so far have learned that that is not me. I'm definitely an entrepreneur.
And that's awesome. And we'll dig into that a little bit more. So you have, is it 4 kids, correct?
Yes.
What are you doing differently to teach your kids about money and entrepreneurship, and how are you handling schooling for them?
That's a great question. I appreciate that. So I and my wife, actually, my wife is the hard worker. We homeschool all 4 of our kids. So our oldest is 10. Then we have a 9-year-old, a 7, and a 5-year-old. And so I was really going back and forth between homeschooling and going to public school or government school. And as I was really thinking about it when my oldest daughter was going to go into kindergarten, I thought, well, if we're going to do homeschooling, now is the best time to do it because she doesn't know what public school is like. And it's only half a day. So if things go wrong, we can go ahead and put her in for first grade. But we've been doing it now. I think she's 5th grade, I think now, and she's doing excellent. She's above her friends in the schooling in the same age, and all 4 of our kids are currently going through it. So my wife does all the hard work as far as the teaching and everything. Now, when it comes to money, what I currently do with my kids, and I would strongly encourage anybody to do this because I've seen a change in my children in how they value money. So a big one is teaching them the value of money. So we never give them an allowance. Just because you're alive doesn't mean you make money. And so what we do is, since we're doing homeschooling, they get curriculum books, and it takes them about an entire semester to go through one book, and they have 4 or 5 different ones for different subjects. So when they get through with one of those books, they get paid $10. They earn that money. That's their way to earn money. So they get paid $10. And from that, I teach them percentages. So I say $10 is 100% of all the money you just received. Let's say 10% of that goes directly to God. We give and we tithe to God. Tithing is a 10%. So we give that to God. But of that, 50% goes into savings. You can't touch it until you're much, much older when you're either going to buy a car or you're going to do something. You're going to be saving 50% of your money every single time. Like if you get a birthday card from grandma and grandpa for $50, you're saving 50%. So 10% goes to God, 50% goes to savings, 20% goes to the family. So we have to have electricity, we have to pay for food and our mortgage and all that sort of stuff. So they realize that, hey, life is not free. And so they know 20% goes to mommy to pay for things that we are blessed with. And then the last 20% they could spend and do whatever they want with it. And what I've been really blessed is a lot of the times they'll keep like $1 for themselves to spend. And the other dollar will either give it to God or they'll put it in their savings, or they've even given it to mommy. Hey, mommy, I know things cost a lot. Here you go, give it to mommy. So that has been a huge, huge blessing. And a couple really quick stories I would share about how they've learned the value of money. Instead of me just giving them money, if we go to like some arcade, or be more specific, go to Cabela's, which is like a outfitter, or it's like a outdoors sportsman type place. And they have this shooting gallery that you shoot a rifle that shoots a beam of light and it hits a little target and it makes something move. Well, the kids absolutely love that. And so when we go there, they would always say, Daddy, I want some money to go play the game. And so when they were younger, I'd give them a couple quarters here and there to go play. And then when they started making money and having their own money, when they asked me, I said, well, I've always told you it's a waste of money. And so now you have your own money. Now you can spend your own money if that's what you want. So go ahead. And they look at their dollar bill and look at the game and they say, that's a waste of money. I could go buy something else. And so they go. And so they're starting to think more rationally about money. So that's one. Another huge thing is just recently, I teach about real estate and how to invest in real estate. That's how I quit my job, is investing in rental properties. And I've talked to my kids over and over again about how we make money and how we use our rental properties to make money. And just like 2 or 3 weeks ago, my oldest daughter at 10, she said, Daddy, you know what? I don't want to buy a car with my savings. I want to buy a house that I could rent out and then use that money to buy the car. And I said, that's my girl. That's exactly what I want to hear. I want you to think about how you can use your money to make more money.
And that's impressive. So do you give them the opportunity to do jobs around the house to earn more, or is it just limited to you're getting paid for schoolwork?
Just getting paid for schoolwork.
Okay.
And the big reason why we did that was because when Daddy works around the house or mommy works around the house, we don't get paid. And so why should you guys get paid? I talked to my wife about, hey, how about we do the special project? Like just today, they raked out a whole bunch of rocks out of our yard, but they're not getting paid because that's what we do as a family. We work together and we work hard.
And I truly understand that. I guess it's just what I'm thinking is how does a kid kind of get, either you call it grit or the desire to go above and beyond to earn an extra buck or to somehow do that?
That's a great point. So for us, what we do is we encourage them. We say, hey, you don't have to wait for us to actually go through your books and finish it on our schedule. If you want to do an extra lesson today and then you'll finish, if you do 2 a day, you'll finish twice as fast. You can definitely do that. And you can go on to the next book. And then if you go on the next book, you can keep making money. And even I have a girl, boy, girl. And so the 2 boys are really racing against each other. Like the older boy, he's obviously older, so he started sooner. The younger boy is like, I'm going to catch him. And he wants to make more money and catch his brother and catch his older sister. And so that's the incentive. But, I've had friends and people that I've known where they complain that their kids aren't hard workers. They don't work around the house. Like one of my neighbors, it was sad. They kids were maybe like 17 at the time, 16, 17. And the parents are outside working in the yard, working hard around the yard, and the kids are swimming in the pool or playing video games. And the parent said, man, kids today, they don't know the value of hard work. And I thought to myself, I didn't say it. Wasn't that your job to teach them that? Shouldn't you say, you get your bottom out here and do it with me? That's my perspective. And my kids, today I got home and my kids had already raked up so many rocks. Like we're in Arizona, so we have rocks. Our entire yard is a bunch of rocks. Anyways, we're redoing our landscaping, so we had needed to remove all the rocks out of the yard into the driveway. Well, they did all that, and I got home and they said, "Hey, Daddy, look at what we did. Look at what we did." And they didn't ask for money. They didn't say anything. They just said they were proud of their hard work.
And that's awesome. It may change when they get a little older, but you never know.
I completely agree. Yes, I completely agree.
So just out of curiosity, because you talked about when you got into the business program about thinking for yourself, did they actually teach you to think for yourself? How did that come about?
I think it comes out of two things, and this is going to sound very, very arrogant of me, and I completely understand that, but you got to get the point across, is I was graduating with a lot of dumb people. Like a lot of people that it's like, what are you even doing here? Like, how are you even graduating? And I'm not smart. I'm not saying that I'm a smart person at all, but the people I was graduating with, I'm like, man, they're just giving out degrees. Like, I need to stand out in some way rather than just having a piece of paper. That was a big thought in my mind, was regular degrees are commonplace now. Like, you have to either get a master's degree or have really good experience to get you above and beyond where you are. And so with people looking around me that are just having the same degree as me, even though I feel like I worked harder than them or whatever it might be, in entrepreneurship. So that was one thing. But I did emphasize in entrepreneurship. So with having other people graduate with me that I knew I needed to do something else, and that was think critically and be my own person and be an entrepreneur and all that sort of stuff. So that was one step. Another huge step was an emphasis in entrepreneurship in our business degree. The business degree itself wasn't at all teaching anything like that. It was where we actually focused on entrepreneurship, starting businesses, talking to business owners, seeing what it's like to have everything rest on your shoulders as opposed to getting a job like in an accounting degree or something like that.
So when you graduated then, did you just straight out start in entrepreneurship, or did you go get a job?
Actually, ever since my paper route that I had when I was 12 or 13 years old, I had some form of business. And I knew eventually that I would never work a job. Like, I would work so hard that I didn't have to have a job because of my businesses. So I've had everything from my paper route to a skateboard manufacturing company to a website design and programming company to I even owned and built a retail establishment where we sold pizzas and a whole bunch of stuff. So I've done a whole gamut of different types of companies, but the easiest one and one that makes me the most money and the one I work the least is real estate and investing in rental properties. And so I've had lots of experience, and this was all through college. Like, even in high school, I had my own business. In college, I had my own business and businesses. After graduating, I got a job because I needed to, I thought, you know what, I need to go get a degree. I need to go do something else. Like, these businesses that I'm building aren't, really panning out that well. Let me go and get, further. And so what I did was I got a job at the county government just because I needed to make some money. And it was a decent job. By the time I quit, I was making like $70,000 a year, $75,000 a year. So it was a decent job. But at the end, I realized I'm losing money working here. Like, even though I'm making $75,000, if I spent that time on my business, I would make so much more money. So I had to quit. But all through the time, ever since my paper route, even through college and having a job, I was always having a business that I'm running or building.
So you were always doing something on the side.
Absolutely.
I think people need to realize that that's one of the least riskiest ways to start a business, is to do it on the side, because should it fail, you still have your income coming in. You can pay your bills, and a lot of companies will provide your health insurance. And so it creates a much safer path to that kind of success.
It sure does. And it was really a big positive for me because having a wife and having kids, I wanted to quit my job sooner, and I wasn't single. So if I were to just up and quit with my wife and kids, they're counting on me. And so I wanted to make sure I had plenty of money saved as well as plenty of money coming in from my business that I would never need to work again, and my family would be completely taken care of.
So in order to do all of this stuff and to be with your kids and to manage life, you've got to be pretty good at managing your time.
Actually, I find that for some reason in my brain, I always know what time it is, or at least generally within like 10 minutes, 15 minutes or something like that. Like, that's just how my brain works, is being on schedule, being on time. But what's great is, now that I've quit my job, now that my business runs itself, I don't have to worry about the time. Like, I could just really go watch a movie in the middle of the day and not have to worry about time anymore. But at the time during building my businesses, while I was still having a job, like, I'll give you an example, my real estate, I was doing my real estate business, my retail business, and my job at the same time. I would wake up at 5 a.m, try to go work out or go running or something, but get to my business at 6 a.m. and then go to work by 8 a.m., get off by 5 p.m., and then go back to my business until like 8 p.m. at night, maybe 9 p.m. So it was literally like 14, 15-hour days trying to build my businesses so that I could quit my job. I didn't need my job again. But in all that time, I definitely needed to manage my time really, really well because there were so many things going on. But I'm really blessed now that I have so little going on that it's just fantastic.
And that's cool. And you're the second person who I saw with the acronym of job being just over broke. And it kind of shocked me in the sense of I've never heard that acronym before. Another guest had brought it up to me, and I saw you also had that on your website.
Yeah, absolutely. And I firmly believe that your boss or whoever's boss, like if you're an employee, you're only going to get paid what it's going to take for you to stay working and motivated to stay working and not quit and find another job, but not too much that the boss is going to be taking the money out of his pocket to give you more money. I have yet to see a job where you are getting paid way more than you should. There probably are out there. At least I never had one of those. Many of the people I talk to, I coach real estate and how to invest in real estate rental properties. And the people that I coach, they're basically just breaking even every single month. And it also, I have to work with them on reducing debt and getting rid of expenses. I have to work with them, granted, on that because they're just like me, where they were never taught to do that in school. But yeah, absolutely. That's something that is huge in my mind, is that if you have a job, you're only going to get paid what the boss is going to do or what he thinks is going to keep you working there. And that's not enough to really get you above being broke. I mean, you're basically just over broke, paying the bills every single month.
So you said you have to help people with their budgeting. What caused them to get in that mess to begin with?
A lot of it is student debt, surprisingly. That's a big one. And then with that student debt, I'm just perceiving that it's because, they have 50, 60, 70,000. I've had one student I just talked to last week, $100,000 in student debt. Well, you already have that number being $100,000. What's another $5,000 on a credit card? Well, I have 8 credit cards, so that's $40,000. And so it could be that mentality, like I already have the debt. So in my opinion, student debt for college is absolutely horrific for anybody that wants to be, financially independent or even not be a slave to their job. And I remember I listened to your episode where you had your daughter on there, and she had a great perspective of, I'm not just going to keep getting loans out for my schooling. Like, when a college said, hey, you're going to need to get more loans in order to go here, she's like, that's just crazy. I'm not going to do that, which I think is absolutely right. And tying in with my kids, I'm going to encourage my kids, do not go to college. I can teach you, like I literally teach people, all my students, I teach them how to not need a job because they invest in real estate. And I'm going to teach them that as well. Now, if they don't want it, that's totally fine. I understand. But I'm going to tell them, and just like you told your daughter, hey, if you're smart enough to go to college, and you're smart enough to utilize college, you're smart enough to make your money to figure out how to pay it. And I like that thinking. And that's something I'm going to encourage my children. If they want to go to college, be a doctor, that's a different story. Like if you're just going to go and get a liberal studies degree and just go get a random job anywhere, like don't do that. There's so many better ways that you can not go into $100,000 in debt and still make enough money to provide for your family. So with student debt seems to be one of the big one that a lot of my students come with.
Actually, what I've started to do on my rental applications is put a separate line for asking people how much student debt they have. Because the funny thing is when you look at the standard applications, it doesn't ask specifically about student loans. It asks about credit card and other types of debt. And nobody was declaring it anywhere. And they weren't even thinking about it, I think. And once I started asking, I was shocked at the amounts that the renters were coming up with for what their student debt was looking like. And I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. And they did have very high debt. And when you look at their income, it's going to take them forever to get out of debt. And that's a shame.
It is a huge, huge shame. And I actually appreciate that. So on my leases, I don't actually ask that, which is a great question because that's more money coming out of their pocket that's not going to go to rent.
Correct. I see a lot of my tenants, the rest of their stuff is very clean, but the student debt is massive. And if you don't ask or look, and it will come up on the credit report, but if you don't figure out what the payment is and you don't put that into the to your equation to make sure that they can afford the house, it can create a big issue.
That's a great point. I'm going to have to look into that. Yeah, that's a great. Now, does anybody not fill in that when you actually sign the lease with them?
Well, it's part of the application. I haven't had anyone not, but I only started doing it within the last year because I started realizing when I started pulling credit reports, some of these people, I think I had one where, and it's hard to tell on the credit report for sure, but I think he was $300,000 plus in debt. He was an attorney.
Oh, man.
But I was like, whoa, what's going on here? And we had already found another tenant, so it wasn't we never got into the conversation, but it was something that was highly concerning because those payments are equivalent to a mortgage. And so that creates massive trouble. So you teach courses and you work with people. One of the things I found, and a lot of people, they might buy a course, they might take a course, but very few people actually complete the course and do the work. What has been your experience?
I would find that probably 50% of my students actually go through the entire course. The other 50% get through a portion of it and they set it aside and think, I'll get back to it. And so me being the teacher, it's upon me to reach out to them and say, hey, what can I do to help you, get moving? How can I actually get you to implement what you're learning? And what I also do is I have coaching as well, so that you can just get my online course where I teach you from beginning to end, from no properties, no knowledge about business or real estate or anything like that, to actually having a fully functioning business with a rental property. So that's what I do with my course. But there are people that need more in-depth coaching. And so I actually coach with them. And in the way that I help them, or I try to encourage them to actually implement everything is, obviously I charge them a coaching fee, but really that is to get them to have a desire to implement what they are learning. And I say, well, you have 6 hours with me, and you have a maximum of 3 months to use those 6 hours. And so if you want to just talk about the weather, we can do that, but I want to help you change your life with real estate. And so what I do is I implement that within 3 months, you have to use those 6 hours. And if you do it right, you're going to have your first property before them, because I'm literally walking you through that entire process. And so I have found, with the students that just get the course, about 50%, set it aside. The other 50% actually successfully go through it all and then build their business up. And the other 50%, I usually try to reach out to them and say, hey, how can I help you actually get through the course and then start your business?
Have you noticed certain traits or certain behaviors, or can you tell which group is going to be which group? Or you don't really know if they're just taking a course online, I guess?
When it comes to the online course, no, usually they buy into it and they jump into it, but I can see how they interact. So I don't have a before and after, Now my coaching students, totally different, because there's an application process, because my time is very limited. I'd much rather be playing with my kids and going on vacation and doing things like that. But I do know that I've been blessed to have this life that I want to give back to other people. I feel like it's upon me to help other people, because I've been fully blessed to live the life that I have. And so I give my time out, and at the same time, I have people apply in order to be a coaching student, because there are some students that it's probably me, like we just don't mesh well, and it's nothing about the person. It's probably me, like I said, but it just might not be a good fit. There might be another person that could teach that would be a great fit for them. But my time is limited, and I want to work with the students that I feel are going to implement everything that we're talking about and get their life changed. And so I found the before and after, as I've had students apply, interview, and then also when I actually accept them, those students that I've actually vetted through, that I get a sense that they're really going to apply it, I have almost like a 90% success rate of building a business.
That's cool. And again, I know there are certain traits and certain behaviors, and when you see them, the person's going to do the work and show up and do it. You mentioned travel, and you do travel a bunch, don't you?
I sure do. My wife and I, we love traveling, and all of our 4 kids.
So what does that look like? You go on long trips, is my understanding.
Yeah, we go on 6-week trips. Now, it's not always that we're going to do this, but I'll give you a little background. So in 2017, right after I quit my job in December of 2016, And so I already had planned a trip to Japan in March of 2017 for 6 weeks. And so I took my wife, my 4 kids, and my dad, who's Japanese, drove all through 1,200 miles all around Japan and had a fantastic time for 6 weeks all through Japan. And it's definitely, it's adventurous because having 4 kids and doing that at the same time, it can be a little trying and a little wearing on your patience. But since we homeschool, we know that our kids are getting such a huge valuable lesson doing that. And then, so in 2018, so this year in March, I took my wife and my 4 kids, and we went through Europe. We went through 6 weeks and went through, I think, 11 or 12 different countries. And it was just amazing. We're from like Ireland, Scotland, England. We went to Israel, stopped off in Israel, and then Germany, Belgium, Netherlands, France, Switzerland, Austria, so many great places. And so that's a huge history and just geography lesson for them. And that's something that most kids will never, ever experience. And then obviously I met you in Florida, which was a great trip. Next year, we're going to be going to Washington, D.C., and traveling and seeing all the historical things there. I've been to Alaska where I go fishing just, like a month ago, I did that. We as family, we love to travel and we love to get experiences and be together doing all this.
And when you don't have a job or when your kids don't go to school, you have the freedom and the ability to do all of those things.
Absolutely. And when you think about, people say, well, how do you get your kids? I know you're not at school, but you're homeschooling. How do you get the time to make sure that they get their schooling in? I said, that's a great question. But if you think about it, kids take off in the summer. Like they have 2 or 3 months in the summer. Well, we work, like our school, we don't stop in the summer. We take our breaks when we want to do it, not when it's dictated by somebody else.
Well, most kids, I think, are only in school like 150 or 180 days. So it's only half the year, which means you have half the year to do what you want between weekends and all of that. And in addition, when you create the curriculum, then you have the ability to learn anywhere you are. And it's much more hands-on learning. So you want to learn history and you're in Japan, you learn all about Japanese history instead of going through a book. You're kind of living it. Same thing with Europe. You actually get to, in a sense, live the history instead of just reading about it.
Yeah, and it was absolutely surreal for me, but also for my kids, learning about Hiroshima and actually being there, seeing where the atom bomb actually dropped and hit. What was really neat, but obviously millions of people died, or thousands of people died. But what was interesting was that the bomb blew up, I would say like maybe 150 feet above the land to make maximum devastation. And what was really neat, we stood right next to a building that was literally directly underneath where the bomb blew up, and the building is still standing. Everything else blew out because if you think of the blast pushed everything out, left or right, but it pushed it to the side. But this building was directly underneath the bomb, so it pushed it straight down. So most of the frame, most of the structure is still there. Obviously, it's not inhabitable and all that sort of stuff, but they kept it there, and it's basically a reminder of everything that happened leading up to it and since then. And my kids are sitting there looking at this. Me too, obviously. I'm looking at like, wow, this is where the bomb dropped. And so the history that they're getting is just absolutely amazing.
That it is. So how did you come up with this lifestyle? I mean, were you intentional? Where did you come up with the idea that this is how you wanted to live life?
I would say that it came from a couple of different things. My history with my mom and my dad were divorced. My mom remarried. She has my stepdad. But anyways, my biological dad, he's Japanese, so I'm half Japanese. And we would go to Japan like once every 2 or 3 years and go there for like a month. And so I was just used to that. That's just something that we did growing up. And so I didn't intentionally think, hey, let's just go travel. But I was okay with traveling, and I liked to travel. I liked seeing everything that we did. And so I incorporated that in my life before I got married. And then when I got married, I realized that I wanted to continue to travel. That's absolutely number one. And so when I started building my business and my dream life, it was so that we had enough money and had the time and the control over our business that we could travel as much as we wanted to. So the traveling aspect, absolutely, that was from, I would say, definitely from my dad. He really helped me have that desire to travel. But the control over my life and being financially independent and not having somebody else to answer to. That's really just my entrepreneurial spirit inside. Like, I'm not a rule follower. My wife's different. My wife has never met a rule she didn't like. She loves all the rules. Like, she said, you can't do that. That's against the rules. Now, I'm not saying I'm not for laws. Don't break the laws, but rules, like self-imposed rules about, hey, you shouldn't buy a rental property because you'll lose money. I've heard so many people lose money. I just don't follow those. I just keep going. And even if I see a rule or it's like a roadblock, I break through it. So that's just my personality. But designing my life the way it is, I really knew that I love my family. Absolutely love my wife. I love my God. I love my children. And so I want to do everything that is going to help be with them, as well as help us to have a life that we would be able to successfully raise up our kids and at the same time do the things we like to do, like traveling.
And that's cool. So, I mean, you were intentional. You decided what you wanted out of life and you figured out how to make it happen. And again, it takes hard work. And I think that's the part that people struggle with. I mean, you worked 15 hours a day, quite a bit, to get everything started and to build that foundation. But once you build that strong foundation, then you get to live life on your terms, which is really cool. And you have the ability to do that. I know a lot of people do like to get involved in real estate. And, from one standpoint, it's nice because you have a guaranteed market. And what I mean by that is every single person in the United States needs a place to live. And
Yes.
So they're either going to buy a house or rent a house, or somehow or another, they're going to need to find a place to stay. And so you have a very large market that you can work within. And then it's just a matter of pricing. You have to be in the right place at the right price, and people will come banging on your door looking to rent from you. That said, I don't know that real estate is for everybody. I mean, there is a lot that goes involved in real estate. And I think that's where a lot of people give it a bad name or they lose money, is because they don't actually take the time to look at all of the different things that need to be done. They don't look at building the team that they need to put in place, and they don't have a set of rules and policies and procedures of how they're going to do things and what kind of a market they're going to serve. Because depending on how you're going to have your real estate and the type of property, it brings about very different types of tenants. And each type of tenant has their own issues that come with them. And depending on where you are, you have to be clear and be intentional in that. What have you found in your experience? Is there particular markets that you tend to prefer, or what is it that you've kind of gone out and done for your rental real estate?
I invest all over the country. I currently live in Arizona, but when I first started buying properties, I lived in California. And this was in 2007, so before the crash. And I realized that in California, I couldn't buy a property and make money. Like the cash flow wasn't there. So I had to branch out. So I bought my first houses in Ohio and started buying there because I built my business up. And you're absolutely right. You have to have a team around you of people that help you do the work, like realtors, property managers, inspectors, and contractors, and things like that. And so I bought my first property in Ohio, and I've since branched out to Arizona and Texas. But all that to say, what I like to do is I really just look at areas where I get the best return for my money, like cash on cash return. These types of terms are, there's a formula that you have to learn how to do that, but also making sure that I have money coming in every single month in passive income. Like, that's my number one goal. And that's how I'm able to live my life, that I can travel the world and not worry about money and not have a job. It's because the cash flow that comes in every single month. But you're absolutely right. It does take intentionality in building a business, building a team, putting in the business processes in place that you don't screw up, that you don't get bad tenants, that you hire the right property manager. There's a lot of things to put in place. And so any new place that I go and invest, going to your question about where and how and what with real estate, I usually look at the price versus how much I could rent it for. And in places like San Francisco, you could buy a property for $1 million, but you'd only rent it for $2,000 a month, $2,500, maybe $3,000. But you're not going to make a cash flow because the mortgage and all that sort of stuff. But if you do it, like say in Ohio where I have, or Arizona or Texas, you can buy a property that's much cheaper in price, but you can rent it out and make money, cash flow every single month. And so what I look for is really, hey, do I like this state? Yes. Well, let me go ahead and start looking in that state for areas of that state, different cities that have decently priced homes. And then I research that area more about crime statistics, about the median income, all this sort of stuff to understand the city. And then I drill down to even specific neighborhoods and even specific streets and nail down this entire area. Once I find the area that I want to invest because it's beneficial, I make cash flow and I have little money coming out of my pocket, that's when I start building my team up, just like you said, of property managers, realtors, contractors, and all of them, so that they do all the work. Like when I went on traveling for 6 weeks, 2 different times, I did not do any work on my business. My company ran itself. Basically, my property managers and contractors and all them, they did all the work, and I just reap all the benefits. So my personal belief with real estate is all real estate is local. And it doesn't matter if you're not from that area or if you're in a different state. That's actually what I specialize in buying out of state and managing remotely, because that's how I run my business, how I love to run my business. And so it's really anywhere in the country that is going to have a good return on my money, and I'm going to get a good passive income and be able to build a good business. And one quick side note, there was one area of the country in Springfield, Illinois that I flew out to about 6 or 7 years ago. I was going to start investing there, but I could not find a good property manager. And the property manager is the make or break of any real estate business. And so I passed on that area, even though I had decent numbers and I could make some money. I couldn't find a good property manager. Now that's 6 or 7 years ago. It might be better now. I might be able to find somebody, but I stick with a property manager to make sure the property manager is good and then let my business run itself.
How do you determine if a property manager is good?
There's many different questions that you need to ask. Obviously, one being going through experience where I've had horrible property managers that were stealing from me. Like I've had, the bad experiences where, really quick, the one property manager I hired, she started a business, a Subway sandwich business or something like that. And she was doing property manager at the same time. And her business started doing bad, the other business. So she started making up false expenses. And, I was really quickly found out, hey, I don't have a receipt for this. And I don't have an expense for this. Nothing's adding up. You're fired. Let me get somebody else. I don't tolerate that. This is my money. This is how my family lives. So I fire and move on. But with experience, I've came up with by basically 20 different questions that I go through when I'm interviewing property managers. And usually when I go into an area, I interview 4 to 6, at minimum 4, try to get at least 6, or at minimum 4, but try to get 6 total property managers to interview. And I interview them, asking them the same questions and getting the feedback of what they say and making sure that I like their answers. And then I do a second interview. Like I'll weed out, let the 2 or 3, 1, 2 or 3 actually rise to the top and interview them again and just say, hey, this is what we got last time, and I got some more questions. Interview them again, and then I interview them one last time. So like the last person or last company that I'm going to go with, I interview them one more time before I actually give them my business. And so on my website, I have all the questions that I ask and the reasons why I ask and the questions that you're going to look for. But to find a good property manager, you really need to interview. This is your quarterback of a football team, the number one position that's going to make sure that you score touchdowns. And so if you have a good quarterback, you're going to score. If you don't, you're not. You're going to lose the ball. And so you really want to interview these property managers very, very well and make sure that they meet your standards as a property manager.
So what % do you usually pay a property manager?
It depends on the area. So it's not always percent. That's a big question I always get from many, many people. What % is a good % that I should look at? And I would say anything, if you go off a percentage, it could be 8 to 12%. I've paid 12%, but these are on properties that are only making $500 a month in total rent. And so $60 versus $60 in payment to my property manager or $66 in a property manager isn't that big of a deal. Like $6, I'll let you, because it's a much more of a hassle because it's lower rents. The clientele is a little different, a little lower class type clientele. It's a lot more high maintenance. $6, go ahead and keep that. But usually, I would suggest getting it to around 9 or 10%. 10% is the highest that I would suggest paying, unless it's a scenario where they're only making like $6 extra, which is not going to break the bank. But there are also other areas where property managers, they charge a flat fee. It could be a flat fee per property, depending on how many properties you have. One area in Houston that I invest, property manager that I have there, they charge $95 a month, which is great because at one time I was renting my property for $2,000. So if they're getting 10%, that's $200 out of my pocket every single month. Well, this property manager was $95 and they did a great job and all that sort of stuff. So it really depends on every area that you go, what the other property managers in that area charge. So, it's just like any service or any product, it's supply and demand. So if somebody's going to give you a better service for a better price, people are going to go there, then everybody else kind of matches that. So all that to say, it really depends on the area. And so you want to really, like I said, interview 4 to 6 different property managers in your area to make sure that you understand what it's like having a property manager there, and you can differentiate. Okay, hey, this guy's charging 8%, this guy's charging 12, and I got to see why this guy's charging 8. Maybe he's a horrible property manager. Why is this guy's probably 12? Because he's might be a good one. So you have to really interview them in order to get a good understanding of the market that you're in.
And then do you have certain criteria for what's a good tenant, or do you let them do that? How do you determine between the two of you?
Absolutely. So I have final say on all my tenants that go in the property. They basically have their own criteria, income-wise, debt-wise, and all that sort of stuff, and rental experience. So they have all that, and whatever floats to the top for them, they say, we're recommending this person to be in your property. Then I personally look at everything that the property manager has and make the decision if I want that person in my property. So really what I look for is somebody that, but I'm going to say this. So this is a huge tip, and you said it earlier, but this is a huge tip that if anybody's listening, if you don't do a background check, eviction and a criminal check and a financial check, if you don't do those as a landlord, you're really going to be losing a lot of money. Even though it might have worked out well, I would say in the end, you're going to lose a lot of money because you're going to get people in there that you probably should not have checked, you should have checked and you should not have put in your property. So always get a background check, an eviction check, and a criminal check as well. And so what I do is I obviously make sure I get those checks and then verify what they actually have stated. Like, have they actually been evicted or not? I'll give you one example. So there's one person that applied for one of my properties. On paper, she looked fantastic. On the applications, she looked great. If I was somebody that didn't do background check, I'd be like, great, she looks great, income looks great, made a couple calls, she has a job, and great, and you're good to go. But after doing a background check, she actually had been evicted 4 times in the last 3 years. Oof. And I know I am not going to be the 5th one. I know that's going to happen. So I don't think I'm going to be the lucky one that actually gets it through. And so I just passed on that tenant. But you have to do a background check, and you have to make sure that really, honestly, it does come down a lot to experience. Hey, this person seems like is going to be good. And another article that I wrote are the types of tenant that you would want to keep. I personally love either old single women, like, 60, 70-year-olds, because they don't move very much. Those are great. But I also like if I can get a family that has 2 kids, that's one of the best ones, because the kids are in school. The parents probably have a job right around there that you want, or that want to live there, and they're going to drive to work and drive back there. You pick up those kids. They're going to get in PE, or not PE, but like sports. They're going to get in all this extracurricular activities. So they're going to be locked down to that one area, to that house, and they hopefully will get bought in that house, because you don't want to have turnover. The more turnover you have, the more money you spend. And so if you can have somebody living in a house for 4 to 5 years, that's a lot of money saved than having somebody move out and a new person move in. So that's the 2 main type of tenants I really enjoy to have in my property.
And that's very true. I think this is one thing that people do not talk about, and that is tenant turnover and the cost that's involved, because it's loss of rent. Not only that, you have to pay all the expenses, the heat, there's a lawn that needs mowed, whatever needs to get done. You're paying all those expenses now. And then on top of that, you have to go find another tenant, which takes time and money. And then you've got to clean the place, and you may need to repaint and do a whole host of other things to bring the property back up and in line. And so turnover is usually a very large cost. And so you need to be careful and make sure you cover that.
Absolutely.
Along the same lines, what do you do for contractors in remote locations? Because finding people to do work is difficult these days.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But with the internet and with companies like Yelp or Angie's List or something, it's actually made it, I wouldn't say simple or easy. It has made it so that you can have at least a good knowledge of, hey, this this person is a bad contractor, or other people have had bad experiences with this company. And so the internet has been a huge help in making sure that you have at least a good understanding before you hire them. Now, one of my properties that I bought in Houston, Texas, I did everything myself, from rehabbing it to getting a new septic system. I got a really good deal on it because the septic system was busted, and no bank would give a loan because of uninhabitable location, because the septic system wasn't working, so they couldn't get loans. So I was able to buy it cash and get a really good deal on it. But everything from redoing all the sod to fixing up the house to putting a septic system in, I did that literally all myself remotely from California when I bought my property in Houston, all over the phone, all through pictures. Now, here's the key. Here's a tip I'm going to give everybody. If you're going to do something like this, what you really want to do is use the people that are working and walking around your house to verify how somebody else is doing. I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a plumber that is fixing a toilet or replacing a toilet or fixing a faucet or whatever, and you have somebody that is, putting in a new sliding glass door. Just when you're talking to the guys doing the sliding glass door, say, hey, would you mind helping me out just for 2 seconds? Could you go make sure the toilet works? Turn on the faucet, make sure that doesn't leak, because it was leaking. And I had some guy, can you just walk over there really quick and just verify it? So that's a completely independent third party that doesn't have any, worries whatsoever. It's not like you're talking to the plumber. Hey, yes, I did it. Or so that's one. But also, if you have a property manager, even a realtor, make sure you get a realtor walking through the property and saying what's done and what's not done. So I use other contractors and other people working for me to verify how other people are doing it to make sure it looks good, because I can't literally see it. And if you can, sweet talk them into actually sending a picture, the third party sending a picture of what it looks like, that's even better, because you can see with your hands off. But somebody that's investing far from another state, you have to have the ability to tolerate risk and really to trust other people. And if you can do that, you can make a lot of money.
Because it opens up your market. But again, you have to have those skill sets, and you have to be able to do that. And that's not easy for everyone. So I think that's a big thing that people need to look at. And I know I've had some other people on, is you need to inventory yourself, your skill sets, your risk tolerance, what you're willing to put up with and what you can do, and make sure that it is a good fit with who you are as a person as to how you're going to do the real estate business. Because there's a million ways to do real estate. You need to make sure that you have matched up yourself to the type of real estate that you're going to be doing.
I agree.
Just out of curiosity, because I've been hearing more and more conversations around this, that the markets are at all-time highs. It's kind of switching from a seller's market to buyer's markets in many places, and also a lot more difficulty getting tradespeople. I don't know if you've experienced any of these types of things.
We'll tackle the market really quick. I personally believe that there's no reason why. I think it's specifically the housing. Stock market's a little different. I'm horrible at stocks. I'm really good at buying high and selling low, which is not what you want. So I stay out of stocks. I'm really not good at it. But when I see the real estate market in 10 years getting back to where it crashed, I think that's a huge, it gives me positive concern. Like, why in the world are prices way back up to where it crashed? There's no real reason why in 10 years it should be back up there. So that's a big concern for me. So I'm not saying don't buy real estate right now. What I am saying is buy good deals. So just recently in February, I believe, I bought 3 single-family homes and 1 duplex off of an investor because it was a good deal. He wanted out. He had a vineyard that he's planting and all that sort of stuff, and he wanted the cash. So I went ahead and bought it. Plus, I also got seller financing, which was even better because he just didn't want the headache. All that to say, I'm buying good deals, but I'm being selective on my deals. Now, when it comes to flipping from a seller's market to a buyer's market, I really think, and this is October when we're literally recording it, that is just now seems like there is a little bit of a switch now to where it's now from a seller's market, seller market price goes higher and higher because there's so many buyers. Now it may turn into be a buyer's market because there's too many properties or whatever it might be, so prices come back down. Now, when they come back down, what also happens is supply and demand. What you look at is, Are there less renters out there, like you were saying, like less tradespeople that are actually going to be able to rent? You have to have these things in your mind as you're going. The good thing is everything moves really slow. It's not like a stock market where the next day can tank. But with real estate, it moves slow. So you have to keep those things in mind. But what I've seen, what I think is in the short while, maybe in the next year, there's going to be a correction in the real estate market to where prices are really high right now. It seems to me that it is starting to shift down a little bit. I see homes staying on the market a lot longer than they normally would, and prices coming down. Another big thing is interest rates are going to keep going up. The Fed's already said that when interest rates go up, that means prices come down, because if somebody only has $1,400 a month to pay for a mortgage, well, if interest rates go up, that $1,400 doesn't go very far with interest rates going up. So I have to buy less of a house, which brings prices down. All that to say, right now, what I see the market doing is going to have a correction sometime in the next year. I'm not a prophet by any means, but I'm just seeing, man, it's just really expensive right now. And so I'm holding off for good deals. And when a good deal comes, I definitely snap it up. But yeah, I'm right there with you, Rocky.
And I think there's just a lot more competition, too, for buying houses from the standpoint of it seems like everyone and their brother is flipping or renting. And so the demand from that side is through the roof. And, it's just what happens. So you have to realize there are market cycles and to be careful. And again, the money in real estate is always made on the buy. So as you talked about, getting the right deal and making sure that it makes sense up front. And then if you do that, then you're good. If you don't do that, you have trouble.
Absolutely. I want to reiterate that point. You made a great point, is that you make your money when you buy the property. And to add to that, you realize your money when you sell the property. Like you literally put the money in your pocket when you sell it. And so just like with a stock, think of you make your money when you buy it, not when you sell it. Because if you buy high and sell low, like I'm good at with a stock, you lose money because you overpaid and you sold it for a lot less. Now, when you buy a stock and it's lower and it goes up and you sell it higher, you made your money because you bought it at the right price, lower, and you now made money when it went up. And so exactly, huge point is that you make your money when you buy the property and you realize it when you sell it.
Absolutely. And so I think with real estate, know your numbers up front, buy it correctly, and then have a team that helps you to run your real estate business and get it done. And that was kind of one of the surprising things at FinCon. That was when you looked at the successful people that were there, they all had teams. And I sat there and I'm scratching my head and I was like, this is funny because in real estate, I have a team of people who do everything for me. But yet on the podcasting side, I only have a very small team. And I'm like, you know what? I think I need a bigger team on this side to help me achieve more and do more and be able to get more done.
That's a great point, Rocky. And that's something I wouldn't mind touching on really quick, that there's a lot of people at FinCon, if nobody on listening had heard, that's a financial conference where we talk about blogging and podcasting, all that sort of stuff. And that's where I met Rocky. It was really a pleasure to meet him there. And a lot of people were talking about being a solo entrepreneur, and they kind of made a word, solopreneur, or going alone, or being all by yourself and all that sort of stuff. That is a good thinking if you're being very nearsighted. If you're being farsighted, you're looking far, you don't want to be a solopreneur. You don't want to be somebody that's going it alone, because it's a lot of work doing it by yourself. How much better is it to bring somebody else along who's better at doing something? Like my property managers are so much better at managing properties than I am. So I pay them well to do that business for me. And my realtors, they do a much better job finding properties. So I pay them well to do that as well. Same thing with blogging or podcasting or online courses or something. There are other people that do things better than I do. I'm really good at teaching real estate because I'm good at real estate, and that's what I focus on. And so whatever your business is, my opinion, you want to have a team of people around you to help you build the business. And I know J.D. Rockefeller once said that he would rather have 1% of 100 people's work than 100% of his own work. And I completely agree with that, because you'll make so much more money and you'll be less demanding on yourself, and you'll be able to rely on other people and bless other people with jobs and way to make money, earn income, and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. And things get done faster, they get done better, and they get done well. And I know that very well from my real estate business. I know I could do a lot of the things that the people do in my houses, but I also realize that they do it better, faster, and quicker than I ever could. And so let the expert be the expert where they are, step aside and make it happen.
Yep.
So is there anything else that we should have touched on today that we have not gotten to?
I remember when we were talking at FinCom, you were mentioning how your premise for your show is you're there, now what? You're rich, now what? I completely agree with that. One thing that I would like to encourage people is a couple things. Definitely stay up on your health, like exercise, get out and move around, get out and do things. Because when we're busy working, I can literally work all day long and not even blink an eye. It's funny, I quit my job, my 40-hour-a-week job, to work 80 hours or more for myself. And so I could just keep working and keep working. But what I need to do is make sure that I take the time to invest in my health, invest in myself, so that I'll be around long when my kids have kids and all that sort of stuff. So that's one. Another thing is definitely value your spouse as well as value your kids and be around them as much as possible. I know I've had some friends that they go to work to escape their family. And I'm like, that's sad. I invest in my family so that it's a joy to be around them. So I would encourage people to do that as well. And one last thing is really personally, I love going to church. I love serving my church, and just getting out and serving is a great thing that is helpful for people who are in a position where they have extra time, they have extra money, they don't have to be hampered down with a job. Being able to give back is something that is a huge blessing because you get more than you give, and it's a blessing to give.
Thank you. And those are all excellent points. They're all things that I 100% agree with. And there are many of the things that I do. I exercise 5 days a week, and I do heavy weightlifting and flexibility programs. We also like to give through volunteering, through charity, and through a variety of different things with that. And I am always with my kids having a blast. I feel bad for people who want to escape their families.
I agree.
I don't know if they picked wrong or what they did, or maybe they just weren't meant to be in families. It's a shame. But building those relationships with your spouse and with your kids is extremely important, or they will take all your money and make you miserable, right?
Absolutely.
We always ask, what is one thing our listeners can do this week? What's one action step you can provide them?
So, Rocky, that's a great question. What I would suggest is to actually give you 2 points, and I've touched on them extensively, but one is build a team around whatever business you're building, making sure that you have a team of people working around with you, making your business more successful. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be where you're paying them an hourly wage. It could be it's symbiotic where you do something for somebody and they do something else back. It could be other ways, many different ways where you're helping each other. But like I said, it doesn't have to be monetary. You're actually spending money on an hourly wage, but try to figure out ways to get people to work with you on your businesses. The other thing I would suggest is to really just get active into working towards your goal of living the life that you want. And so I sacrificed for, I want to say it was 9 years of having a job and having many businesses. Like I said, I've had many businesses at one time until real estate really was the cream of the crop that rose up and that was taking over. And then I just said, you know what, I'm going to put all my time in there. But I would sacrifice, even though we loved to travel. We lived in California. My in-laws lived in Arizona. Our one vacation a year would be to drive from Fresno 600 miles one way to Phoenix to see the in-laws for Christmas or Thanksgiving and then drive back. That was our one vacation. Even though we loved to travel, that was because I saw the end in sight of me being able to quit my job, me being able to live the life that I want. And so I sacrificed then so that now I literally have everything that I would ever want. And I'm very blessed. So I would encourage you guys to do those 2 things.
Thank you. Excellent action steps. If people would like to connect with you, learn more about your real estate business and the courses you offer, what is the best way for them to find you and connect?
That's great. So I have a podcast, Master Passive Income Podcast is my podcast. I teach all about real estate rental properties, basically how to do exactly what I've done and walk people through the process. I also have my blog, masterpassiveincome.com. as well. And if you go there, you can see everything from my YouTube videos to my podcast, articles and courses and everything on there. But yeah, masterpassiveincome.com is the best way to get a hold of me and find me.
Cool. And I will put that in the show notes so people can easily click and find you. Thank you so much for being here. This was an amazing conversation about life and building a passive income.
Thank you very much, Rocky. I really appreciate it.
The same principles that we covered today in this episode on real estate apply to every other area of life as well. We need to be intentional. Dustin knew what he wanted, and he put in the time, effort, and the sacrifices to create a life of freedom. He put in systems, and he built a team. Did you hear how he interviews rental managers multiple times? And then how, when they don't work out, he has to fire them? This is a lot harder to do than it is to say. And it's one of those things where we get lazy and complacent. I know that happens to me. Is real estate right for you? I don't know. You have to put the time and effort into knowing yourself and how it fits your strengths, and how to overcome your weaknesses and put people on your team to handle those areas. And of course, building teams and building relationships is another important part that we covered in today's episode. One other thing that I've learned and that we talked about today is to pay people who are better than us at something so that they do it and we get to moving and get things done. The action step was to build a team and start building the life of your dreams. So, what's preventing you from moving forward, and who are you putting on your team to build the life you deserve? Taking no action creates a far worse outcome in life than trying something and failing. Can I or Dustin help you achieve your goals? Just email me and we can start with a short chat to see if we're a good fit for coaching. For many people, one session allows them to take a giant leap forward toward their dreams. If you're still listening, you must have liked the episode.